Okay, let's finish up where we left off. So this is the last page of notes for lesson 9. So the question is the relation a function? So we come back to this table. What would you say? Is this relation a function? Yes, it is. Why would you say yes? Right. The domain, there's no repeating values of the domain. What is the domain? Okay, and then what's the range? And what is f of negative 3? 8. Good. What is f of 0? Good. What is f of 7? 0. And by the way, we were talking about the x and the y intercepts when we were talking about graphing. Since x is 0 here, and this ordered pair would be 0, 15, where would this point belong on the graph? On the y-axis. This is just like an FYI. Here, when you have y is 0, your ordered pair 0, 7 would be on the x-axis, because anytime y is 0, you're not going up and down from the x-axis. Okay, let's look at this word problem here. So, the charge for renting a moving truck is $49.95 plus 55 cents per mile driven. There is a $6 non-refundable deposit. Write an equation for renting a truck. Let x represent the number of miles driven and y represent the cost. So here they've defined the variables for us. So we're going to go y equals, and can anyone tell me what the equation would be? $49.95 plus 0.55, good, x, because that's the number of miles driven, plus 6. Could we simplify that to what? Yeah, because we would call these like terms. So $55.95 plus 55 cents per mile. Okay, and now, of course, we can always plug these x values in, but I want to remind you that you could also use a table of values here. So if we were talking about the table before, if I go to my y equals and I clear out what I have, so you want to make sure that you don't have any, otherwise it could be a little confusing. Any other equations? I'm going to type in 55 plus 55.95 plus 0.55x, and that's our x button. If I go second table, oh, that would be a lot to scroll down to 100 miles. So what could I do to get to 100 miles on my table quickly? Remember, I could change the table setup. So if I go second table setup, start at 0, count by 100. I'm changing my table by 100, and I'm going to enter, go back to the table, and then I have 100, which actually 100, 200, 300, these are not that bad because 100 times 0.55 is just move the decimal over 2 places. So we get 110.95. If we plug in 200 for x, we would get, here's my 200, 165.95, and 300 for x, I get 220.95. The idea behind me showing you how to use the table is that, it's a good idea to be able to know how to use the technology, but also it could be a way to check your answers. I do want you to still know how to plug the numbers in and get the answer, as well. Okay, write an equation for renting the truck using function notation. Any ideas about how you might do that? Yeah, you're just replacing the y with f of x. F of x equals 55.95 plus 0.55x. So that's literally function notation. The f of x is how we read that, replaces the y. And then if we want to evaluate f of 250 and interpret the results, we would plug in, what would we do? F of 250, yes, and that basically means, what are we going to find if I put in 250 And I don't have that actually on my table because I counted by 100. So I'll just go quit and plug in 55.95 plus 0.55 times 250. And we get 193.45. What would that mean in a complete sentence? How would you interpret your results in a complete sentence? Great. For 250 miles, it will cost 193.45. Okay. Now, on your activity, I actually did want to really quickly just point out something that came up in the groups. So when you were working on this problem, it's important to know that when you are squaring, because you have an exponent here, when you are squaring a negative number, you always want to use parentheses. So you could write -2 in parentheses squared minus 3 times -2 plus 7. And I just wanted to point that out because on your calculator, if you go -2 squared, that's actually -4 versus parentheses -2 squared. That gives you a +4. And so it's important to realize that. And then some good conversation came up about the order of operations as well. And so just making sure that we know how to use those order of operations is important. Any other questions before we finish for today?